there's a bit of a glint in the eye of the anti-wokists, i.e. people like us, because it turns out that in Sheffield they've actually decided not to change the names of some of the streets there, which were being lobbied because of the association with slavery. So I say this is a big step for the anti-wokists, which is, of course, you and I. The people who would like to change our history have been given a bit of a bloody nose. Connor, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for granting asylum in the independent.
Listen, you're always welcome, mate. Very good news, this, isn't it? Because it's not often we get a win against the wokists, but it looks like it's all good.
Yeah, we can kind of take a victory lap here.
Yeah.
Not to be outdoing the government and their complete lack of common sense. The Sheffield Race Equality Commission, not at all insidious name,
if you say so.
Yeah, exactly. They claim 100 monuments, all exclusively owned by British people, were perpetuating racist, outdated and uncomfortable messages. These included Canning Street Road after ex-PM William Gladstone, Peel Street after the creator of the police and ex-Prime Minister Robert Peel, and Cannon Hall Road, who was named after a stately homeowner. Now, they opposed Gladstone and Peel because their fathers supported slavery, even though they explicitly didn't, actually. Gladstone called slavery the foulest crime that taints the history of modern mankind in any Christian and pagan country. I don't think you can get a more round renouncement than that. And Cannon Hall Road was denounced because his brother supported slavery, not him. So we're seeing a system here where we're visiting the sins of the fathers and brothers on people who were prominent figures in British history and even involved themselves in abolishing the slave trade. And in Britain, we've all had a common law tradition. We judge people based on their individual actions. We don't do this familial guilt thing you see in North Korea, where grandfathers to grandchildren get locked up because they're landowners. We don't want to be going down that road, though the people that have funded groups like BLM, which back these kind of events, they shouldn't be surprised when they fund people who say they're organised Marxists and they get Marxism.
Yeah, well, exactly right. And I mean, ludicrous statements like this really wind me up, right? Apparently, while a review of all of the street names and all of the various different parts of the history of Sheffield found that while they didn't have any William Colstons, they did have a fabric in the city which perpetuated racist, outdated and uncomfortable messages. Well, I mean, what do they think history was? I mean, history is not some kind of Disney movie where you can just, sort of paper over anything that you don't like the look of. You can't pretend that, the Battle of Culloden didn't involve a lot of people dying. You can't have the Battle of Hastings reenacted without Harold getting an arrow in the eye. It doesn't make any sense to try and change what actually happened because you don't like what happened.
Well, according to things like Channel 5 and the BBC, when you look at Doctor Who or the Anne Boleyn documentary, you actually can. You can change things like the race of even one of the Henry VIII's wives because you think it would somehow be beneficial if more black men got their heads cut off. It's kind of frustrating as well that we see this sort of thing around the world, even by Britain's ambassadors. I'm Charlie Boy yesterday in Barbados saying, the slave trade was the greatest stain on British history. Actually, I think Britain's role in the slave trade towards the tail end should be something we should be very proud of.
Exactly.
We spend so much money.
But what's he doing? I mean, what the hell is Prince Charles playing at, saying things like that? It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, one of the most privileged people in the entire world going on and on about what his ancestors did. I mean, I'm pretty sure my ancestors weren't involved in slavery, but if they were, it would be because everybody else was, and it wouldn't be anything to do with me to apologise on their behalf.
Well, I'm really glad someone who runs their Aston Martin on wine and cheese is telling me how my ancestors, most of whom were Irish, by the way, so the bar from pubs, bars and jobs alongside black people and dogs from the horrific signs at the time, is telling me just how evil I am based on my heritage. I find it funny as well that if Charlie Boy sets this standard, if they start deciding, misogyny rather than racism is going to be the tail end of the thing in future, he's tearing his hair out of the amount of statues and portraits of him that the activists are going to be.
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, this is the kind of insidious nature, though, of the wokists, isn't it? Because they're always finding new targets. They're always going to go, and now that they've left Sheffield, they'll probably head off somewhere else and decide that something else is misogynistic or racist or has connotations which nobody likes. I mean, we've still got, I think, this statue commission down here in London where they're looking at all sorts of things, including removal of statues, but also renaming of streets.
Well, this is why you never trust an activist to solve a problem that they make a lot of money off being in the streets campaigning about. It's like the old joke about cancer treatment. much profit in continuing the treatment for it. Much like activists, when Tony Sewell's race report came out recently and said actually the racial disparities are more cultural than they are ethnic, and white boys are suffering in education, the Runnymede Trust, which is a professional racial grievance mongering organisation, turned around and said, we're deeply disturbed that you found no existence of racism. You're deeply disturbed that your job's done for you. Really? Well, that's a very mask-off moment in saying that, oh, we can't make any money off of whinging that the entire society is prejudiced against us. Now, this is why you actually trust people to do jobs in devolved departments and don't set up big government commissions that sit around whining about how offended they are all the time and want to wage a cultural revolution against British history.
Exactly.
We should stand firm and say, hey, we are happy to be patriotic in one of the least racist and historically most progressive against racism countries in the world.
And also, where does it stop, Connor? Because if you start down this road, then suddenly you're talking about all sorts of people who might find things offensive. You know, or next maybe the trans community who don't like somebody's name because they were anti-trans, and so we must remove it from sight. You know, Nelson Mandela Place is all over the place. I mean, there's one in Glasgow, there's probably one in every city of this country. What if somebody in South Africa decides that he wasn't actually the saint that they thought he was? So we'll have to remove all of those names.
Well, this is why the Race Equality Commission is a terrible name, because you're never going to get equality. You'll get equality under the law, but you won't get equal outcomes. This is why you see equity being pushed alongside diversity and inclusion. That means everyone gets the same sort of thing, much like communism, funnily enough. You're never going to get equality. What you're going to get is freedom. Freedom from, Martin Luther King said, the ability to be judged on your race, instead being judged on your character. And this is why they've inverted this. This is why actually the critical race theorists in their texts go against Martin Luther King. They lament the fact that there's color blindness, and they say, oh, it's actually super racist to not judge people based on their race and give people special privileges because of history.
Yeah.
This is why we're seeing now a judgment of people not like Gladstone and Peel, not on the actions they did, not on the things they should be proud of, but on the actions of people associated with them. This is collective justice. This is why justice means each individual person getting what they deserve. This is what social justice has to add that prefix onto it. Social justice is not justice, it's justice by group. And treating people based on their race as guilty or innocent is never going to be just.
No, it really isn't. And I mean, I was amazed, I can't remember who it was that was saying this, but there was some organisation, I think it was a university somewhere, it might have been St Andrews, where they basically have now redefined the word equality, which does not mean treating everybody equally. And you go, yeah, well, sorry.
Well, yeah, it's insane. Well, my reading list when I used to go to Kent, which was very famous recently for saying, oh, wearing second-hand clothes and not being judged on it is white privilege. The Equality and Diversity Commissioner there, by the way, is an absolutely insane woman. I have endless stories to tell, but I'll keep them to myself for now. Right. They put out a reading list that included people like Ibrahim X. The guy who's come up with this word anti-racism. He's co-opted it. It no longer means being against racism. It actually means judging people by basis on their group. And then he says past discrimination means it needs to be corrected in the present by present and future discrimination. Which means that white people who did nothing against black people hundreds of years ago need to suffer in the present so that black people can get some form of reparations, even though they themselves never experienced direct persecution.
Sounds fair.
Just fundamentally evil.
It's ridiculous. It really is. Absolutely incredible. Connor, thank you very much indeed. It's laughable, isn't it? Connor Tomlinson there, political commentator with Young Voices UK.